Gazans and wounded more than 100 near two aid centres in the south of the enclave. According to agency spokesperson Mahmoud Bassal, 22 were killed near a site southwest of Khan Younis. Another 4 were killed near another centre northwest of Rafah, with further deaths reported in the region. Bassal blamed Israeli gunfire for both these incidents. The Israeli military has said that it was looking into the claims. Let's have a listen to some eyewitness statements.
على شارع الطين عشان نستلم المساعدات الأمريكية من مؤسسة غزة الإنسانية. عادي كل واحد لبس غياره واخذ كيس عشان ناخذ منتج اليوم ونروح. رحنا قالوا لنا فتحت، وصلنا الحجار تعوت البطون تعوت حجار المدخل الأول، طلعنا الدبابات، فكرنا احنا بالناس بدها تنظمنا عشان نخش نسلم، ما اكتشفنا انهم جايات الجبات من الشقة والدبابات من الشقة الثاني وطبوا طخ فينا عن ولا، يعني مش تقول انه بطخ انه يخوفك انه قاعدك، لا هو قاصد انه يقتلك، هو لو بده ينظمنا لنظمنا، بس هو قاصد يقتلنا.
هذا المكان مش مساعدات، هذه مصيدة علم، هذه مصيدة بس، هذه مصيدة للموت. أي واحد بده إياه بيسيبوه بس، أي واحد. هذا ما ينسرف، هيا ابن عمي ماليش ذنب ماليش ذنب. رايح بده يجيب ياكل بده يعيش على زينا زي هالناس حالنا.
Well, deaths of people waiting for handouts in huge crowds near aid distribution sites have become an occurrence seen more regularly in Gaza, with the Palestinian authorities blaming Israeli fire for the deaths. Well, joining us to discuss these reported deaths around aid sites is Yossi Kapawasa, an Israeli intelligence and security expert who is joining us from Tel Aviv. Yossi, as always, thank you for joining us. I also just want to clarify some information we're flashing on scene is slightly outdated. Reports now suggest that at least 50 people have died around aid centres today. Yossi, we've spoken before on this programme about this potential issue with reports from multiple groups, eyewitnesses and local authorities saying that deaths around aid centres are continuing to happen. The UN said that at one point it was nearly 900. We've also heard from Israeli officials that they will work harder to prevent this type of death. Do you think that enough is being done by the IDF forces to try and limit deaths at civilian help points?
First of all, thank you for having me. Secondly, I'm quite certain that the IDF is doing the necessary lesson learning from what's happening over there, because our purpose with letting the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation supply food to the people of Gaza is to make sure that the people of Gaza are better off. That's the logic behind what we're doing. And it's definitely not in order to kill civilians who are trying to get food. So those who are against this happening are the Hamas and their supporters. So it makes no sense that Israel is going to kill the people of Gaza that are coming to collect food from the organization that we have let and encouraged to supply them with this food. This sounds very strange. Now, there were 2 cases in which people were killed because of Israeli fire, mainly because there were people from within the crowd that were running towards the Israeli soldiers that are overlooking the situation. And they felt under threat. But I don't know if this was the case right now. As the army is saying, they are investigating, find out what exactly happened. I don't know myself from here. Difficult to know what exactly took place. We know that yesterday, for example, there was a case where Hamas was causing trouble in the lines for food, and this caused a stampede that killed a couple of people. It's a dangerous situation, and we are trying to learn and improve the situation.
Yes, Yossi, of course, I'm glad you alluded to the difficulty of this situation. Of course, Israel have persistently said that aid is getting into the hands of Hamas and assisting them in their continued fight against Israeli forces. Hamas, of course, who started this conflict with the October attack in 2023, October the 7th. Is there more work that does need to be done, though, introspectively by Israel, with reports of hundreds upon hundreds of civilian casualties around these aid sites? NGOs and charities have questioned the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and the safety of that operation. Questions continuing to be raised after further reports of deaths of civilians around these areas are coming almost on a daily basis. I understand it is a difficult situation, and of course the IDF comments has been that we are investigating, but the investigations are happening and the reported civilian deaths are also still happening. At what point does a serious question get asked about not just the aid distribution, but the IDF actions around these aid sites?
As I said, I'm quite certain that it's not the IDF who's shooting at the people who are trying to get food from places that distribution centers that IDF has promoted and managed to make possible for the population to get food from. That makes no sense. Just the opposite of what may happen. So this information should be taken with many grains of salt. And it's clearly that it is the interest of the Hamas and the aid agencies that work together with Hamas to create the impression that GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is somehow involved in activity that ends up with the killing of civilian Palestinians.
Yossi, we are shorter of time, so I do want to interject just briefly before we move on. But after that UN report of hundreds of deaths in and around aid sites, the IDF did admit that instances had happened. So I want to pose that to you, that they acknowledged that mistakes had been made and that lessons would be learnt, but it doesn't seem that any lessons are being learnt if these reports are to be believed.
If these reports are to be believed, then the pace with which the IDF is conducting its lesson learning process is not satisfactory. That's true, but we have to figure out who provide these reports and to what extent they can be relied upon. It's I would take them with caution. These reports. It's definitely the civilians are suffering on the way to the food distribution centers. That's clear. Who is responsible for that? This is, from some of the cases, these were mistakes made by the IDF. They admitted that this was the case. And some other cases, this was caused by other elements that are operating in the same area. And it's hard to say from right now, what happened to date. It's too early.
Yes, absolutely. You are right. Of course, we will wait for further information on these reported Israeli attacks. Of course, reporting is difficult within the enclave, given the limited number of non-Gaza reporters in Gaza. But we will, of course, continue to monitor any developments that we get. Yossi, you will